all you knitters and hookers too. This is a perfect time for any hookers that want to join in to try out the podcast. I'm mostly talking about yarn today, but I'm also going to be talking about some crochet hooks, so you can stick around and check that out. I am Christy, also known as Mama in a Manse, here on YouTube and Instagram and Ravelry. My name is actually changed now, so that's exciting. You can go over on Ravelry and find our podcast group. It's Mama in the Manse podcast. Join in there. If you have any questions that you would like to ask me or topics you'd like to hear about on the podcast, let me know. We have a giveaway coming up, so getting more people subscribed and in the podcast and all that kind of stuff is kind of a goal to get to before we try to do that. And truthfully, I was also going to say I've really been thinking a lot about how to get this out there, find more people that would be interested in hearing about my yarn adventures, and watching a lot of people's first podcasts just for comparison's sake and see what am I doing, what are they doing, that type of thing. But if there's any way that you know of getting this information out, that there's a new podcast, let me know. Feel free to share or however you do that, because I am not good at self-promotion. It seems very awkward to me. Yeah, so let's see here. I'm gonna start out with the hashtag Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted. It was hosted by Tega Hillard on Instagram, and I've shared about that in my last two podcasts, but this time I have some, fair warning, the kitties are being crazy today. This is Minerva, I don't know how you say it. Look at the camera. She won't look, but she's gonna play with all the stuff. All the kids are in bed, but the kitties are being extremely crazy tonight, so they may be making a few debuts. Stay out of that. Anyways, get your yarn wishes granted. I've had some lovely wishes come in this week, and so I wanted to share those with you. My first one was, let's see here, make sure I get the right names with the right stuff, from the Endless Knot Co. on Instagram, and she sent me worsted scraps, though truthfully this is not a scrap. Let's see, there's two more in here. So all of this lovely goodness was from her, and she's in Texas. This is not really, I think it's more of a fingering weight. There's a whole bunch more of it in here, so I'm looking forward to figuring out what to do with that. Sorry for the crinkling. Is the only way to keep them together. And then a Southern lady sent me a sweet card and some teas and 4 minis for my sock yarn blanket. So there's one, 2 like this. Oh, my hand's behind it and right in front of it. That didn't work out too well, did it? And then another one. So I will be working on those when I get back to my pinwheel scrap blanket. Oh, and it's a Southern Lady R on Instagram. And then another one of my wishes besides scraps and the patterns that I told you about last week were for yarn from far away. And so this is actually it got granted. This is actually my first international shipping. Sorry, I'm a total dork. But I was super excited about that. And she actually sent me 2 skeins. And this is Mother of Pearl. It's from the UK. And so this is a striping one, and I stalked around on Instagram and found it, and it's super cute knit up. I love the pink anyways, but this is so my colors. I love this. And I found this knitted up and was very excited about that. So those are my yarn wishes that got granted and came this week. Okay, so then the next thing was I don't have any FOs, though I did find the dress that I talked about last week. Weirdly, it was in the laundry like the kids' like clean clothes basket, in the right kids' basket and everything, but for some reason I couldn't find it last week. This is the Lizzie dress that I made for Violet for her baptism. And it is made out of Lindy chain from Knit Picks, and it has these little buttons on the back. It's not buttoned up. But I just thought I'd go ahead and show that to you since I didn't get it done last week because I couldn't find it in my entire house. As far as whips, I just have the one. If anybody is new and doesn't know, I had a cyst removed in my hand about 3 weeks ago. And so I was not supposed to knit at all for 2 weeks, but I did stick some DPNs into my thumb hole of my splint so that I could still knit on my scrap yarn blanket. And so I did a little bit of knitting with that, and then last week I got my hard splint off, and I have like a removable one that I'm supposed to only use for a lot of activity, and so I have like worn it to church and when we were getting ready for Thanksgiving, because I really thought those were times that I'd be tempted to like grab something that's heavy, because I'm not supposed to be putting any weight on it, like not even the bait, like I'm not supposed to pick up the baby with that hand. And so I was cleared to start knitting again when I got my splint off, but I didn't actually get it. That was last Tuesday, and I didn't actually get a chance to even knit until Saturday. So I haven't gotten nearly as much done as I wanted to. But this is my Angel in My Tiny Pocket sweater. And I was right here last week, so I got the rest of the end done and then the bottom. And then on one of the sleeves, I got all the decreases done. And I was gonna go ahead and do the decreases on this, but my hand, so Saturday I did the bottom, finished out the bottom, and did the bind off down here. And then Sunday I did the decreases on the sleeve. But I stopped because my hand was really bothering me and it's a little bit swollen. I don't know if you can tell, but like it's not supposed, ooh, it's still bruised. You can see in the video. It's kind of swollen up on top, and I don't think it's supposed to look like that. So these little steri strips were supposed to be on for a week, and tomorrow's a week, so I will be taking those the rest of the way off. I've just been trimming around them. They told me to keep trimming them and then roll it off when a week was up. So I'm actually having to go a little bit slower on that whip than I would like to. It's a test knit for Melissa Kemmerer, and it's due the 10th. I still think I can get it done, so I don't feel badly in that way, but I really wanted to be further. Like, I was kind of hoping to have it pretty much done to be like, yay, and show you, but it didn't work out because I only got 2 days of knitting, and then yesterday I could have knit more time-wise, but I was not, my wrist was just not cooperating well with that, and so I didn't. And then today I haven't had any time, which is, you know, pretty normal for me. That's why I end up podcasting at nighttime, because all 5 kids are in bed, and that's the only time that it works. Also, yes, okay, so Mama in the Manse, I have 5 kids, and my husband's a preacher, and we live in a clergy house, which is Manse. That's why the name, I forgot that part when I was doing my introduction. Sorry. Alright, so that's all the like beginning stuff. So this week I am going to go through a lot of yarn, needle, hook stuff. A lot of the people that I know in real life that are knitters are relatively new knitters, and they don't have a lot of experience with anything. I mean, with knitting, with the yarn, with needles, whatever. And so I really wanted to talk about like the different places to get yarn, different kinds of yarn, the benefits and like pros and cons, and just kind of share some information in that way. I do think that even people who are, super knitters, share comments if there's something that you think that I left out or something you don't agree with. I'm hoping this isn't a controversial thing. Pipe in, let us know, share some stuff, because I know that at least 2 people that I know in real life that know about the podcast are really kind of in that set. And when I had talked about my kids and my husband are going to be my guinea pigs for me teaching people how to knit, because I'm teaching a class next summer. And my husband said that he didn't want to learn to knit on the crappy needles that I learned to knit on. And I shared that in my craft group a couple weeks ago, and they were like, I bet he only wants to use merino wool too. And yeah, he didn't want the crappy yarn, but it's not a bad thing. But anyways, so I'm just gonna kind of jump right into this, and hopefully it's organized enough that you can understand what I'm talking about. We'll see. So basically, I used to be a total cheapskate about everything. Particularly like my clothing, I would only buy it used and as cheap as possible. Like, I wouldn't buy a pair of jeans that was more than $15. This was both from necessity and choice. I was like, there's all these clothes that you can get secondhand, and there's no reason to spend more than that. I had a hard time buying any kind of shirt that cost more than $10. I did a lot of garage selling, and part of the issue with that was not like, I wasn't saying, oh, I'm looking for this specific thing, but I would be like, this is a great deal. Let's buy these 4 tubs of Christmas decorations. And my walls were covered with stuff. I had tons of things that I had gotten from garage sale. And when we left seminary and moved into our manse, it's a really big house, truthfully. There's 4 bedrooms, kind of 3 bathrooms. That's a whole nother story. One of them doesn't count. My kids call it the scary bathroom. It's the one in the basement. Nobody uses that one. Anyways, and they were gonna like paint the walls and do all this stuff. And so I really made a conscious effort to be like, okay, I'm only gonna put stuff up that I really love. And so truthfully, a lot of my walls are still kind of bare, even though it's been 2.5 years, because I haven't found the absolute perfect thing that I love and that I'm willing to put holes in the wall for. It is a very old house. I actually found out that it was built in 1920, which I thought it was a lot older because truthfully, there's a coal chute into our basement. So I figured it was a lot older than the 20s. But it is, I mean, it's still almost 100 years old. And so, like, obviously putting holes in plaster walls is a little bit different than, just regular drywall. They're not as easy to fix and stuff like that. But it all kind of culminated into me really looking into more minimalism, and kind of where I'm going with this is that I am working towards a capsule wardrobe. And if you don't know what that is, then it's mostly having a limited number of clothes. And it's not necessarily about the number so much as you have these basics that you really love. And you don't just have like a closet full of clothes that you have there, but you don't like them and you don't wear them. But having, 30, 40, 50 pieces that you love, so that anything that you wear on any day is an outfit that you feel fantastic in, you look great in, you absolutely love it. And so working towards the capsule wardrobe for me has meant a lot, that I'm learning to pay a little bit more for good quality, something that has value, and really is going to hold its value more, and is something that I love. I am not just buying stuff that's on sale that because it's cheap. You know, like here's a $5 or $10 shirt on Old Navy. I'm going to buy it because it's cheap. I'm only getting things that I think will be flattering on my body in a way that I will be comfortable, and that is something that I would love to wear. And I really enjoy it because I've noticed that I feel a lot better getting dressed. I'm spending a lot less time trying to get dressed. There's lots of benefits to it. And it's kind of a whole like mindfulness mindset anyways, which is another part of it. But the capsule wardrobe kind of leads into where I'm going with like yarn and needles and hooks. You can get stuff for really cheap, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best thing. It is the best thing sometimes when you are looking for, you know, just like your clothes. You're going to have some clothes that you lounge around in, or that are for working in your garden, or painting, or playing sports. I don't know. I don't do that. But you're also going to have stuff that you're going to wear to church or to a wedding or things like that. And so just like that, there's all kinds of different ranges of yarn. So, and needles and hooks, truthfully. So the yarn, I think I'm going to do needles first. Okay, so the needles, my first set were boy needles. I think that's how you say it. It's like B-O-Y-E. So I got these needles, I believe from Michael's, and they came in a set, and I don't know where the set is because I don't use them anymore. Sorry. I had to get my husband to go get me a Pepsi because there was no water or Pepsi in the house. The only thing that there was this Angry Orchard that my best worst friend Jeff got me for my birthday last year. But I thought that that might be a little too classy with a K to be drinking on a yarn podcast. So Pepsi seemed a little bit better. Anyways, so I got these at Michael's, and you can get the set, which has most of the sizes in it, and use your like 40 or 50% coupon off. The same ones are sold at Hobby Lobby and Joann's. And you can use your coupon and get them for like 35, 40 bucks. So they're really economical. And I wouldn't necessarily say that they're terrible for learning on. But these are not the needles that you're going to continue to want to use. So I will give you a gander at these. My biggest problem with these is that they're heavy. This cord is really stiff. It really like sticks out instead of like bending more. It's hard, like hard. And it's also really thick. It's a lot thicker than a lot of the other ones that you'll see. These needles were also very notorious for, I don't know how to focus this. There, a little bit. You see, they came undone a lot. Like I would several times have something and I'd be knitting and all of a sudden it'd feel lighter, and it was because this had come all the way undone and my stitches were just like falling off of it. Or it would open a little bit and they would get caught in between the needle and the thing. And this join is not, I think they meant for it to be ergonomic by bending it like that, but it's unnatural. So these are what I learned on, what I started with. And what I absolutely prefer, hold on a second, I'm sorry, my knees are up in your face. I have to find the right one. I have a whole pile of needles here. Are Hiya-Hiyas. So I don't know if you can tell a difference. These do kind of bend down a lot more. See, the boys stick out more. But also this cord, like, is super flexible. You can easily make it into a little tiny. This, I'm pushing a ton more. I don't know if that's really translating in the video. But these are my absolute favorite preferred. They swivel on the cord. And also their join is, like, it goes over it instead of the needle being on the outside. I don't know how to explain that. Anyways. Absolutely prefer these. This is what I knit on all the time. And man, I wore a lighter shawl and everything this week, and I am still burning up. Podcast makes you hot, not like hot like woohoo. Okay, so actually, one of my complaints about the boys were that they were heavy. And so I'm like, well, I'm gonna find out if I can actually, like, give information about the heaviness. So I got out my trusty yarn scale. It's a yarn scale, not a kitchen scale. Amazon says different, but they lie. I use that for everything. That's something that you should also think about getting as you get into more knitting. It's super helpful. I use it all the time. But anyway, so I tried to weigh it, and my Hiya-Hiyas I could, like, roll up and I could sit on it and weigh them. But these are so, like, this cord is so stiff that it just kept flopping them out, and so they weren't on it and I couldn't weigh them. So I got out a cereal bowl and tried to put them in that, and they still flopped out of it because the cord just kept pushing them out. So I had to get a mixing bowl. But anyways, you know, I tared it out to 0 and weighed both of them in the mixing bowl. These were 5 grams and these were 10. These are twice as heavy as the Hiya-Hiyas. This is not just an opinion. This is like imperial facts or something. I don't even know if that's the right word. But this is so much lighter. It's half the weight of this. And I even, like, got the same size needle, so I was making sure, like, obviously that I was comparing properly. So that's a big thing, that these were a lot heavier. So some other ones that I have, I'm going to set these out of the way because I'm done with those sizes. And then I have a lot of other kinds of needles that I was going to share, and they are all in size 4s so that when we're comparing them, hopefully I can figure out how to focus them, that you'll be able to see what I'm talking about, like the difference in the points and stuff. Okay, so let's see. This one is an Addy Click. And when I first started knitting, Addies were like the thing. So right there on my cheek, you can see this join. I don't know. Surely you can see that. So Addies were like the big thing when I first learned to knit. Like, they were the, I don't know, whatever it was that you were supposed to strive for. They were considered the best. They were super popular. Everybody was like, oh, that's what you should get, is Addies. And so I tried a couple. I have this 4 and I have a 7 as well. Hate them. Absolutely hate them. Knitted with them for like half of a project. Never use them again. This join is awful. Can you hear that? That's my fingernail catching on the joint. Now, I have not used other Addies. I've not used like fixed circulars or the lace ones or anything like that. The other thing is I hate the point. It's very shallow and it's super round. Maybe that doesn't matter when you're littler, when you're newer, whatever. But these were like knitting with clubs for me, and the yarn was constantly catching and hated them. I also have, these are Knitter's Pride or like Knitter's Pro. I think they're Pride in the US and Pro in the other countries. I'm not really sure how that works. These aren't so bad. I use these sometimes. They're a little maybe more draggy than my Hiya-Hiyas. They're not as sharp, but they have a better point than those Addies did. I don't know how to focus this. I'll try again with all of them together. The cord's pretty decent. It's very flexible. And also the Knitter's Pride and like the Knit Picks needle, the cords, I don't necessarily think that they're the same company with Knit Picks, but they do work on each other's needles. So that's kind of handy. This is also Knitter's Pride. This is the carbons, and it is kind of a hybrid. So this is slicker than wood, but it's a softer, like kind of almost rubbery feeling material. And so people, especially that like maybe have arthritis, I've heard that the wood needles or the carbons, because they're not cold, are better for their, like they don't hurt their hands as much. But these still have the benefit of like being a little less slippery, having that warmth, but they also have like a metal point, so they're pretty pointy. And these are probably, I would say these are my second favorite. And then these are some Knit Picks wood ones. I really don't, and they have a nice flexible cord too. I really don't use wood too much, except like if I'm working with cotton or something. And then of course, again, this is the Hiya-Hiya Sharp. Alright, so make a needle bouquet for you. Where's that Addie? Okay, so let me see if I can figure out how to get this to focus on the needles. I have no idea. Okay, I think you can probably kind of tell. Let me scoot a little. Hold them closer together. All at the same height. Okay. So starting on I don't know how to focus. Okay, so starting over here on this side, you've got the Hiya-Hiya, then the carbons, then the Knitter's Pride, then the Addie, and then the wooden. That shining on it is not helping me at all. And I don't seriously know if you can tell. Because of the shining. But like this Addie is less sharp than this wooden one. This wooden one has a better point. And you don't want to be knitting with a club. And that's what I feel like these Addies are. Now, there's Addie's lace and all that kind of stuff too, so I'm not knocking all of them, but I particularly hate these clicks. I do not use them. These carbons have a pretty sharp point, and so do the Knitter's Pride, truthfully. The Knitter's Pride is a lot less deep than the Haya Haya. I think those are even. You can kind of tell. These are hard to hold on to and make show up at all. I don't know if you can tell, but like the point starts way up there, and this one, the Haya Haya, is down further. It gives you more room to work on the stitch before you run out of space. And really, when you start to get faster, you want to be able to get your needle in and out without, like, you don't want to be having to shove your needle in there and really like opening the stitch a ton. You want to be able to get your stuff without disturbing your stitch that you're knitting into. So I would say if I was like going for a project to knit, I'd start with my Haya Hayas. If I can't seem to find those, I'd go for my carbons, and then probably my Knitter's Pride. Unless it's something that I particularly want wood for, and then I would look for wood. Though truthfully, the carbons are about equal as far as being able to like not drop stitches. I don't really have the problem with dropping stitches as much anymore. But like I have the whole Knit Picks set of wooden, and I have a straight one too, because I find I pretty much knit everything with circular needles. So even if you are knitting something that's not in the round, you can still use your circular needles. This one doesn't have 2 on it. Hold on. Like this one has it. You would just flip your work the same way and wouldn't join it in the round. Just for comparison, I know one of the complaints that some people have about Haya Hayas, sorry, I grabbed the wrong one, is that they are too sharp. And I seriously don't know if you'll be able to tell. I searched through all my needles to see if I could find one that was considered, like, that wasn't a Haya Haya sharp. And it's the one on this side. I don't feel like there's a ton of difference. I mean, there is a difference. You can see a difference. I don't know if you can on here. But truthfully, I don't have a problem with them going through my fingers. The older ones don't seem to be quite as pokey. Like some of my like newer 1s and 3s and stuff like that are pretty sharp. I've never had one go into my finger causing me to bleed. If you're pushing on your needles that hard, I feel like your gauge is probably not where it should be. Your stitches should be sliding. They don't have to be like hanging off like, woo. But I don't think they should be like strangling your knitting needles. I did used to knit really, really tight, and so that was part of the reason that I had the sharps in the first place, because then I was able to get into them, into my stitches. Then I taught myself how to knit continental, and so I don't really have that problem anymore. In fact, I'm a pretty loose knitter. So yeah, but I also have the carbon set, and I actually have 3 sets of Haya Haya because they come in small and large. And in the beginning, like, these are the smaller ones, so they go from like, I can't remember if the 2s are in there or not, or if I bought those separately. But they go up to like 8s, and then the bigger set is like 9 to 15, I believe. Where's the words? Yep. So they go from 9 to 15. A little bit of difference there. And when I first got my needles, I thought I would like the long ones. So Hiya Hiya has longs and they have shorts. They're like 4 and 5 inches. And I thought that I would want the extra length to have on my needles. But there's a huge difference there. And the reason I have 3 is because I had originally bought my my large size set in the longs, and truthfully I found that anything that I was using with this big of a needle, it was usually hats. And so if you get the longs, you can, but I don't recommend trying to do a 16-inch circular with them because it just is, it's really bendy. You don't have a circle. It kind of has like a shape like this, kind of like the boy needles do. And so it's just not very comfortable, and it is actually like 18 inches instead of 16. So I did get the smaller, the shorter set of the larges. Okay, and so now I'm going to talk a little bit about crochet needles. I don't crochet a lot. I do some. But I also have boy crochet hooks. Most of them are missing because I don't know where well, obviously I don't know where most of them are if they are missing. Whatever. And same with this set. This is a Hiya Hiya set. Really the only difference that I can see between them is that, are these about the same size? Close. Really nothing. I mean, their heads are the same, their throats look the same. This is a 7 and this is a 6. That's just what I kind of grabbed out. But they're pretty similar, like, ergonomically. This, like, the thumb grip is bigger. But I don't have my thumb on that so much, so it isn't that big of a deal. This set does come with like the giant, sorry, the giant ones. And there are a lot more that are in that set, in the Hiya Hiya set, that aren't in here, that are floating around. And they come in this super pretty case. That's the biggest benefit of them. Truthfully, when I was looking at these earlier, I was actually thinking about like taking the hooks out and putting all my DPNs in here, because I don't have a DPN holder, and I've been shopping for them on Etsy, and like some of them are like 20 and some of them are like 70 for the case, not needles, and so that's a lot. Anyways, so I was thinking about doing that. These are pretty similar, truthfully, and they're your pretty standard. I do think that my boys, I've gotten like nicks in the heads of them and stuff, more so than I have with the Hiya Hiyas. So there is that. Then I also have some, both of these were like, obviously they're super different sizes, but both of these were like free for shipping type of things that I tried out. This kind of is a little bit rubbery, but it's mostly plastic. I've used these to help people learn to knit. Like I gave one to my sister when I taught her to crochet. I've never used these, and I don't think I will. They're just awkward. But I will say that going along with the whole, you really want to enjoy your craft. So, okay, so like if you're a quilter and you have a $30 kids sewing machine from Walmart, that's going to be different than a $500 or more sewing machine that you use, that you get from like Bernina or something. I don't even know how much they are. And And that's kind of the way that the knitting needles go as well, except for Addies. Addies are way more expensive than Hiya-Hiyas, and I hate them. So that it doesn't really like translate there. But Hiya-Hiyas are obviously going to be more expensive than the boy set. The boy set, I think, is about $70. The last time I kind of like even paid attention at Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, and you can use the coupons and get them for like $35-40. And so the Hiya-Hiyas are going to be quite a bit more expensive than that. They run like $70 or $80 a set. So yeah, they're going to be more expensive, but they're worth it if you're enjoying what you're doing and it's not causing you pain, you're not losing stitches. It's really something you should find out what you like first, because had I gone out and bought a whole set of those Addy clicks, I would have been so mad, especially because that was a time that we did not have money. People in seminary are poor. Not that really people that are in ministry aren't. Whatever. Anyways, there's also these. So I've talked about the crochet hooks. And truthfully, with those, I would say that the boys are just as good as the Hiya-Hiyas. Probably better than those like free for shipping ones. But then there's also the Cadillacs of crochet hooks. These are furls. They are super ergonomic, and I barely feel this crochet hook when I'm crocheting with it. They are very expensive. They are like $30 for a hook. So if you are someone who crochets a lot and you know there are certain sizes that you like, that you use a lot, then buy one and try it out. They usually have pretty good sales. Obviously, it's going to be after Black Friday and Cyber Monday, because it's Cyber Monday right now while I'm recording this. But they usually have sales then, and you can kind of like find some at other times. But I would say that if you are someone who crochets a lot, these are worth the investment. I love these. I don't really crochet with anything else. If I don't think you can see it. I'm like looking like I can look up into my camera. Up here at the top of my yarn cabinet, I do have a bunch of crochet thread because I have a book that I got a long time ago that's like a year of doilies. And so it's been like my New Year's resolution every year, for like the last 2 or 3 years, to do each month of doilies. So I have the yarn for that. And if I did those, I would use my, because doilies take the little tiny ones, I would use my boy ones. But anything else that I'm crocheting, I use the furls. They don't hurt my my wrists at all. They balance in my hand. Like, I barely hold on to them, and I just bloop, 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 bloop. I love them, and I think they are totally worth investing in your craft and your love. So that's a lot of information for hookers. Okay, I'm going to take a short break, so I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Okay, so now I am to what I wanted to talk about for yarn. So there are about 4 different categories of yarn that I'm going to talk about. One is from big box stores, so Walmart, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Joann's. Those would be the big box stores. Then you kind of have like this online, I don't know if you'd really call it like a discount. There's kind of a category of yarns that are cheaper online than maybe like in a brick and mortar yarn store. The ones that I've used the most in that category are Love Knitting and Knit Picks. Knit Picks is where most of the yarn is, well, all of the yarn actually that I'm going to talk about in that category is from. And then you have your yarn stores. So your local yarn store My local yarn store is Imagine It in Omaha, Nebraska. They are invaluable places, not only to get yarn, but to get help and to meet people. And truthfully, until I had found podcasts, like back in March, I think, that was the only like way I met other people that shared my interest in knitting, crocheting, yarn. They are the ones that introduced me. Actually, it was Sarah from Yarn Soup in Dubuque, Iowa, that introduced me to Hiya Hiya's, that introduced me to Nice Yarns. Truthfully, I really miss her, and I can call her up and be like, hey, it's Christy Hill, and she's like, oh my gosh, how are you doing? How are your babies? How's Nebraska? Like, she remembers me. And the same thing goes for Carla in Omaha. You know, you get to be friends with them, and it's a real person that you are supporting a small business. Everything is great about that. There's obviously, they do carry some local yarns from like independent dyers in their area, but also they carry a lot of the commercial nice yarns. I don't really know how to explain that. Your Madeline Tosh's, Malabrigo, Plymouth, all of those types of yarns, big name brands that aren't big box brands, if that makes any sense. Love Knitting carries a lot of those brands as well. And then you have all of your indie dyers. And oh my gosh, there are so many of them. They are wonderful and amazing, and they do some incredible stuff. You can find lots of them on Etsy. Some of them have separate websites of their own that you can also find. But the best way to like look at yarn porn constantly is on Instagram. There are so many indie dyers that you can follow and see pictures, and everybody has a different style. There's lots of neat stuff, and so that's the other category. And sometimes those are in your local yarn stores. They're not going to be so much on like the websites. They're definitely not going to be like in Michael's or something like that. But those are my 4 categories that I'm going with. So let's start with the big box. So, and the other thing is that I'm going to talk about like 3 different kinds of yarn. Basically, your plant fibers, which are like cottons, linens, all that kind of stuff that's not an animal and not plastic. Then you've got your acrylics, which are your completely man-made material yarns, and then like any kind of animal fiber, so the wools and all of that stuff. And I'm just kind of lumping those together because we don't need to go into all of that, and that's too much information. And already this is going to be super long, so I may actually be cutting some of the stuff that I had planned for this week out. If I do that, I'll do it next. I'll like finish up what I had for this week next week. I was planning to talk about socks, my like sock making journey next week, but if I talk about the garments that I've made next week, it just means that I actually, if I'm not showing you my socks, I have another week that I don't have to shave my legs. So, I mean, it's sort of a win. Okay, so this would be like your Lily and Cream or Sugar and Cream. I don't know which one it is, but it's basically the dishcloth cotton that you would get from Hobby Lobby or any of the big box stores. You can get it at Walmart. I think at Walmart it's Peaches and Cream, and at Joann's and Hobby Lobby and maybe even Michael's it's Lilies and Cream. It's about anywhere from like $1.25 to like $2 or something like that, and you can make about 2 washcloths out of this, out of one skein. This is the Karen cakes from like Michael's that have this fun like gradient type of thing. This is acrylic. I think it's 100% acrylic. No, it's 20% wool. I did make a baby blanket out of this for Violet. If I remember, I might stick in a picture of it. This is also cotton. This is the Hobby Lobby brand of I Love This Cotton, or I Love This Yarn, but it's cotton. This is quite a bit softer actually than this. I feel like it's a little bit thinner as well, but this is more pleasant. And I've bought this for making things more recently. And then you've got your acrylics. So the ones that you can get pretty much anywhere is like Red Heart. I'm surprised I even have this. My husband, like when you talk about stash diving, to find this and to find the cotton from the big box stores, like we had to dive in the basement. It was a real dive. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, I'm stash diving. It was a real dive. Like you probably needed oxygen to find this. Red Heart is really scratchy. Truthfully, I think this was passed down to me. This label looks really old. And so I think that's why I have this. I know that I have like an orange because I was making a like rifle sock type of thing for my brother for Christmas one year. And when I say I was making it, I mean I made part of it and it's still not done. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago. So I would use it maybe for something like that that is going to get dirty. It's going to get really nasty. But like even for like amigurumi, if I'm even saying that right, I wouldn't use this because it's really scratchy. The I Love This yarn is from Hobby Lobby. If I'm using an acrylic, this is usually what I use. I don't use that much acrylic anymore. Just because, well, for lots of reasons. I do use it for some things, but I have kind of passed the point where I want to make a lot of stuff with this. This is not that bad. There are some of them that are really plasticky or really splitty. Karen's Simply Soft is one that I have a garment made out of that I will show you either later in this episode or next week. I have a problem with it being very splitty, like it splits constantly. It's not pleasurable to knit with it. I don't want to spend my time with it, and that's kind of what it's come down to with the acrylics. They're not going to last as long. They are not going to be like for clothing. They're not going to be comfortable to wear on your skin. Something that I did recently use the acrylic for was for Halloween. Our baby, well, she's 6 months now, but she obviously was a month younger then. And she was going to be in a carrier for trick-or-treating for Halloween. And so I just wanted to make something that would be cute, but also basically was meant to keep her warm. And so I like made this like little tiny blanket, and I knitted it up, and then I crocheted around it and made little ties so it could tie to the carrier. And I'll try to remember to stick a picture in here because I'll see this great big pumpkin face. And then I duplicate stitched the black in. And there were little booties too, but I don't know where they were. This was her little hat, pumpkin hat, and there's a stem. And so I used acrylic for this because I don't know. For one thing, it was easy to get and I needed to get it. I had made the kids' other costumes and I didn't have a lot of time. Hers was going to be last because she's not going to care if I didn't get something for her. And so I left it for last in case I didn't get to it and I didn't have time. And so then it was easy to get the I Love This yarn because we now have a Hobby Lobby in our area. And it's something that was going to go on the outside. Yes, the hat was on her. A lot of the hats that I've made for my kids in the past have all been that acrylic. I do think that wool is warmer, and so now I'm kind of moving towards making hats that will be warmer and wool and stuff like that. But I do use it for that. And then the other thing I'm gonna show you this like super awesome project. Hold on a second. Okay, so a couple years ago, I believe January 1st of 2016, there was like a lot of stuff about doing a temperature blanket or scarf or don't look, can't look yet. So I decided to make a blanket, and it is, I love this yarn. And I was like, you know what? I want to do it every 5 degrees and do it for the whole year. And I want it to be king size so I can put it on my bed. So I spent a lot of time picking out yarns that I thought would be beautiful for this, for the whole year. And so I did. It's never gonna go on my bed. Someday I am gonna finish it. I have all of my temperatures written down. I do believe I'm to July. So there's January, February, March, April, May, June. Yep. I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry if you were knitting and I was just counting. I'm 8 days into July of 2016. But anyways, okay, so I picked all these colors, made sure I had enough, blah, blah, blah. Ew, there's something really disgusting on this. This is what kids do to your life. Okay, so January, look how beautiful it is. It's like the best ever. It's so gorgeous. These are my favorite colors, purple and like aqua and teal and stuff. And then we had, of course, like we always, I've made some comments about weather in Nebraska, and this blanket is proof of it because I'm like halfway through the year and you're gonna see. But we always have like a really super cold week, like the second week in January. I feel like they should just like extend Christmas break through like the 10th or something like that, because that second week after they go back, we always end up missing a bunch of school. It was the same way in Iowa. It was more in Iowa because we had kind of like the lake effect getting us, and we were further north. But we do have, I had to like add this color right here, this white with the like sparkles. I don't know if you can tell it's sparkly because it didn't, these are the high temperatures for the day. It didn't even get up to 0 that day. And so I had to like drop down and get a new one, a new color, because I had ended it at this really light, this was the lowest, I think, the really light like aqua teal color. Okay, so then, you know, we get into February. Oh look, there's March. Isn't that pretty? I don't know how to show this to you. And then you just keep going. Look how much the Nebraska weather changes. It's so ugly. Oh my god. Okay, so yeah, here's like June into July. I can't even. It is so ugly. Let's see if you can see this. Welcome to Nebraska, folks. This is where your weather changes every 5 minutes, and it gets really super ugly and then drops down into cold again, and it's insane. So yeah, I used acrylic for this. I used the I Love This yarn. And I still have like the whole big conglomerate of yarn that I'm using for this. And I will work on it because I do want to finish it, but it is so hideous. Like, it's the ugliest thing ever. I don't know what this stitch is that I did. I can't remember. It was something I like looked up and kind of adapted or something. Sorry. But it kind of like makes them melt into each other, so I liked that. But yeah, this blanket that I thought was going to be gorgeous, that I was going to want on my bed, and then it's like all like orange, pink, and green all next to each other. Anyways. Okay. So that was my fun little jaunt into that subject. Okay, so then the next thing that I was going to kind of talk about is like the stuff from like knit picks for is what most of it is. I am so hot. I'm sorry. This is insane. I need to like put ice packs in my nursing tanks when I podcast. So this is a cotton. Well, it's linen. It's Lindy chain from Knit Picks. It's 70% linen and 30% Pima cotton. And I made Violet like 3 dresses out of this before she was born. So her little dress, this Lizzie dress by Take It Hilliard that I made for her was out of the Lindy chain. And it was pretty economical. So each dress was less than 20 bucks. This is wool of the Andes Sport. It is very scratchy. It's like $3 or something. I should have written down more prices. I was thinking more of prices when I got into the like higher end stuff. This is not something I would make anything that was touching skin. It's too scratchy. Like this would. This I am making my husband a clerical stole that'll go over his robe or his suit coat, so it's not actually touching him, and so I feel like it would be fine for that. It's not super wash either. So there's that, but it's very economical because I bought like 14 skeins, or like 12, maybe 12. 2 blues, 2 reds, and like 8 or 10 whites to make this big stole for him, and it wasn't too bad. And for something like that, like I want something that's not gonna break the bank. Like I'm not gonna make him a silk stole at this point. They also have a dishcloth cotton. It's called Dishy. I really love this. It is a lot softer than the stuff at like the big box stores. It's more pleasant. It's not as like scratchy feeling on your hands. It's softer. It holds up just as well. It's barely any more expensive. It is worth moving up to this. It is so much nicer to knit with. This is another palette. The shawl, I feel like there's like, there we go. It's it's backwards. It seems so weird when you're podcasting, everything's backwards. This is non-superwash wool. The shawl that I wore last week, the full hat that I was wearing is made out of this. It's pretty soft. Like I'll wear it on my skin. I probably like wouldn't make a sweater out of it, but I will make a shawl out of it, obviously. And I probably wouldn't make something like that my kids were going to wear on their skin, just because I think that they would complain more about it being scratchy. But this is like, I want to say $3.49 for a ball, and it has 231 grams or yards in 50-gram balls. So it's very, very economical, really good for color work. And then some sock yarns that I have from there are Felici. Now, Felici is a self-striping sock yarn, and you need 2 balls to make a pair of socks. They're about 5.5. You can sometimes get them on sale. This is one of their brand new colors that they come out with. They don't have it all the time, but this is Goth Kitty, and I'm loving this. I love these colors. This is really soft, and I think that maybe last week or the week before, I mentioned when I was doing my pinwheel blanket that the Felici was actually softer than any of the other yarns that I had in that block. And it's pretty soft. I've never had any problems with this. My socks seem to be wearing well. It's very economical, especially compared to like some of the more expensive stuff that I'm going to show you. And truthfully, a spoiler alert, because I was going to talk about this in a different podcast about socks. I spent the summer knitting with this, trying to figure out what sock formula works the best for me to get a sock that I like, that fits me well, that has like the right amount of negative ease, and has a fabric that I'm going to enjoy and I prefer in my socks. And so I didn't feel like I was ruining a bunch of yarn by using it for that. I think I made like 4 or 5 pairs of socks this summer trying to find the right needle size to get the right gauge for me. So I love this, and I have a lot of it. I don't know, you can't see very much of it, but over in here, and there's a whole bunch behind it. And then the other thing that I like from there is Stroll. So a lot of the plain colored ones that you can see right here are also Stroll. This is Stroll tweed, and I had never had any of this, so when I ordered recently, come on light, there we go, I wanted to try this because I am really in love with tweed right now. I showed you my tweed that I got from Hue Loco last week, but like sock yarn wise, I wanted something that was a little bit cheaper, so I can try out some contrasting heels and make some socks out of the tweed. But I don't necessarily want to use like a really nice tweed, and I haven't seen a lot of tweeds around, so I'm going to try this out. And that was cheaper than the Felici. Okay, so then you've got your yarn stores. So here is cotton from them. Oh, I did get it out. Okay, so this is a cotton that is actually from Nebraska. It's Brown Sheep Company, and they are out west. So I was going to show you, I was crocheting this blanket, and obviously it's not done, but it is crocheted cables. Can you see it? Oh, I didn't see my eye. And so I wanted something that was going to be pleasant to knit with and look good, but wasn't going to like break the bank because it is a baby blanket. And so I went with that. It's about $9 a skein. It is softer, like it it's 80% cotton, 20% wool. Truthfully, it kind of almost feels like it's a little bit silky. It's still cotton, it's still a little scratchy. Obviously, it is not something that I would like make a dishcloth out of, which is what I would use like the cheaper cottons for. So there's that. And then also, as far as like the plant fibers go, I also got some Elizabeth Lavelled Hempathy this summer, and I made a tank out of it. So it's like hemp and linen. I don't exactly remember, but it's I made the notched tank. I changed the bottom of it so it has like this lace detail instead of like it had ribbing on the bottom of it. So that was something that I used with a plant-based fiber from the yarn store. And truthfully, I love this tank. I wore it constantly this summer. It's going to be quite a bit more expensive than like buying like a cotton from a big box store. But it's going to be something that you want to wear. I would not want to wear this on my skin. It's going to be super heavy. The Hempathy is kind of heavy, but it's not It's not like super heavy. It's definitely lighter than my worsted boxy. And then the other like fancy plant fiber that I used this summer was Queensland Savannah. It is 66% silk and 34% linen. And this is like 20 bucks a skein, as opposed to, you know, something else. And this is not going to look like much, obviously, because not only is it, the kittens are being naughty, not only is it lace, but it hasn't been blocked. So this is going to be the azalea tank. Truthfully, I cannot tell you who it was by because I don't remember. But this is like the bottom front or the bottom back. I can't remember. I was working on this and it was really bothering my wrist a lot more, and so I couldn't even get through a whole row on it before I was really in pain. So this kind of got put on the back burner and didn't get finished this summer. It's something that I'm hoping to finish this spring. You can kind of, this is not what you would make a dishcloth out of, but it will be very pleasant as a tank. Oh, and it lives and will continue to live for a while because I have lots of sweaters I need to make since it's winter time in another Beach Dreams bags. I told you I had too many of these. Though, truthfully, I might have a different kind of bag to show you soon, because my husband was going around giggling about talking to his new BFF, Jody, a couple days ago. And we don't know anybody named Jody. The only Jody I know is Jody from the Grocery Girls. And it happened to be right after I had repeatedly told him that she had her totes up on Etsy, and I had that on my Christmas wish list. Like, I wanted a tote. You've been seeing totes that she's given her friends, and so I wanted one of those. And so we'll see. Might have a new bag to show you soon. Okay, so other stuff, like this is a sock yarn that I also got from a yarn store. This is KFI Luxury Collection Indulgence Cashmere. This is 70% extra fine merino, 25 polyamide, 5% cashmere. So this is a really fancy sock yarn from the yarn store, and it was 25 bucks. And that's been a while because that's my yarn store in Iowa. Extremely soft, extremely soft. And this is like 100 grams instead of 50 like the Felici. I don't really know how you're supposed to say that. There's so many things that you read all the time and you don't say them out loud. This is actually 150 grams. So it's actually a pretty good deal, even though it's luxury. You know, and then you've got all your different kinds of things. This is ball yarn. Fingering. I believe this is Simply Natural, like Haiku Simply Natural, or Simply Worsted, that I got for making hats. You know, so at a yarn store, you can basically find anything you want. My worsted boxy was made out of a yarn store. God, that looks huge when I hold it up like my little tiny head. It was Malabrigo, so that's a yarn shop yarn. Then another sweater, I'll tell you about that later. Whatever. Okay, and so then that leaves the last category, which is indie dyed stuff. And there are some indie dye stuff that's like all over the place. Like, I think Hedgehog is considered indie dyed, but truthfully, I don't really consider it that because it's one of those things you can barely get on any kind of update, and It's in a lot of yarn stores all over the world. It's probably one of the more famous. And I think also they say that Sweet Georgia is indie dyed, but that's also something that I see in most of the yarn stores as well. And so I don't really, they are hand dyed, but they are more commercialized, I think, than a lot of the indie dyers. The indie dyers that I'm just starting to get into indie dyed stuff. So I don't have a lot, actually. I did get a new package this week that came, so I can share that as well. Sorry for the crinkling. This is the Color Riot Neon Lights from Hue Loco mini pack, and I was going to use that for my blanket, and also heels, toes, and cuffs, and I want some really fun socks. I'm super excited about that. With indie dyed yarns, a lot of times you're not going to have the opportunity to squish them and feel them before you try them, before you put yourself out there and buy them. And I'm sure that there are some that are not as great, that are itchy or that have knots in them. Truthfully, I haven't had any problems with any of the indie dyes that I've gotten. I think that there's a lot to be said for supporting a family, or I mean, even if it's just one person, you are still supporting an actual person. This is not some CEO. I personally have some issues with like Walmart and Hobby Lobby because of some of their corporate practices and opinions, and truthfully, I don't know what any of the opinions of my indie dye yarn are, my indie dyer yarn people, but I can feel good about supporting a family. And every time, okay, so as an example, every time I get one more view on YouTube, I'm so excited. And every time that you buy yarn from an indie dyer, I kind of assume that they feel the same way. Probably more so, because, But okay, so I'm just going to share a couple that I have. This is Hot Knit Yarn, and I found her on Instagram. That's entirely how I ended up checking her out. This is her hydrangea colorway, and it is on Cocoa Fingering, and it's 100% superwash merino. But I loved the colors, so I wanted to try it out. I really like it. It's pretty soft. I have not knitted with it yet. And then this is the Hue Loco that I had shown you last week. That's the tweed for my light rain. And then my local dyer, One Twisted Tree. Oh, I forgot to show you the ball band. I'm not a very good podcaster. That was for Hue Loco. And then my local knitting celebrity, Danny, from the Prairie Girls Knit and Spin, One Twisted Tree. This is her Pagoda colorway, my favorite. And then this is another one of hers. This is her Chaotic Neutral, which I am making the long line cardigan out of, that I think I showed the first week, or I don't remember which week it was. Okay, so all that being said, sorry, I gotta switch my notes over. I was gonna kind of go through and talk about some of the different categories and like garments or something that I've made. Okay, so the first one I have on my list is my windswept. If you watched my first one, you know this is my favorite sweater in the whole world. Whoa. Look at those long sleeves. I love them. Okay, so this sweater, and remember what I said about spending more for something that has more value, that's super flattering on you, that you absolutely love, that you love the way it looks on you, you love the way it feels. And that's what we're kind of like talking about here, because this is way more than I would spend in a store. Though I have like changed my mind. My bangs are driving me crazy. I feel like you don't need to see quite as many of my wrinkles and forehead as that. So So I'm sharing about how much these garments cost me in yarn to kind of explain and illustrate my points about the different kinds of yarn, and where it gets you. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't listen to it. Do whatever you want. But this is my windswept. It's really hard to hold it up and show. I'm probably going to have to wear it. But I'm so hot. I'm going to have to like find a way to cover up this vent. This was made out of Cascade Heritage sock. And I ended up having to get another skein, but it was about $44. This is my favorite sweater in the whole world, and I have quite a bit left over. Not a full skein, but I did end up getting a little bit more because it was going to be, I think those skeins were like $11 each, and I think I needed 4. But I ended up needing more of the cream. I did make my sleeves a little bit longer, but it was this the body that I ended up needing more on. So truthfully, this was a very economical sweater. And it was yarn store, like brick and mortar yarn store yarn. Then the next one that I was going to share with you is my worsted boxy. This was also yarn store yarn, Malabrigo. Not my absolute favorite sweater in the world. I shared last week that I had a lot of pulling issues. I think literally it's because I chose this color riot of a yarn. I mean, obviously, when you have that much color, you have more risk of having the pulling issues that I did. And I don't necessarily think it's the yarn's fault. This was probably about $75. It needed like 6 skeins, and I think Malabrigo was about 15. I'm not sure it's completely my style, and so I kind of discussed like maybe if I wear a bra instead of a nursing tank, it's not like I'm just letting them flop around, that I would like it better, but right now it's not one of my favorites. So I did spend a good amount of money on this, but I don't hate it. I mean, I wear it. I wear it a lot. It's not something that I think is like super flattering, and I don't really know for sure why that is, but anyways. Okay, so my long line cardi, which I showed you the little bit that I had done the other day. Let me just lean out and see if I can grab papers. I don't have the long line right here. Sorry. I leaned for no reason. Okay, so my long line cardi, I used One Twisted Tree in the Chaotic Neutral, which is this one that I showed you. And that sweater is about $135. So this is any dyed yarn. But the sweater probably won't end up using all 5 skeins. When I get indie dyed yarn, and truthfully, even at the yarn store, sometimes I will get a little bit of extra, because you don't really, the dye lots are not the same as like a commercial yarn, and truthfully, the Malabrigo, there wasn't a dye lot on this, but they were completely different. And so you want to make sure you have it. On top of which, like the Hue Loco that I bought for my not Waiting for Rain, I keep saying that. That's the shawl. My Light Rain that I got the Hue Loco for, she's like in Colorado. And so it's not like it's going to be super easy for me to just like run out and grab another skein. So I actually have extra. I believe on my long line, the yardage for my size was about 200 yards or less. That's not right. It wasn't 200 yards. It was like 70 yards, okay? It was about 70 yards less than 4 skeins. And I was not comfortable just getting the 4 and possibly not having them matched up. So truthfully, that sweater, I will probably have an entire skein or almost an entire skein of this left over. So truthfully, that would be, make it closer to like 110 or a little bit less than that for that sweater when it's done if I don't use it. This sweater, which is going to be the light rain, like Tracy's. And truthfully, I feel like when Tracy made it, she said she only used 4 skeins, but I have 5 just in case, because like I said, she's in Colorado and it's indie dyed. You have no idea if it's going to be exactly the same. So I do have 5, and that sweater would probably, I've basically spent about $140 on this, but I will also probably have that entire 5th skein left. I'm pretty sure I will, but I wanted to just be super sure. Okay, so then the Irish coffee that I'm also going to make, I bought this Knit Picks City Tweed Iran heavyweight wool. So it is this purpley color. It's like a grayish purple, I don't know. And it's tweedy. I love it. The Irish coffee, I haven't started it obviously, but I got this for that. And I bought 8 skeins, again, to make sure that I had plenty. This sweater has cabling in it. And cables eat yarn like crazy. Basically, like your kids eat the Halloween candy is how cables go. This one, I've spent $64 on yarn. I don't know that I will use all of that. I probably won't. But it could easily become a very cute hat. So that's from Knit Picks. And you can see that there's a sizable difference between like the last 2 that I told you about and this one. But we'll talk a little bit more about that when I get through this. Okay, so then I also made the first sweater I ever made, the second garment, was After the Rain. This is why I'm getting confused, because everything has something to do with rain. I made After the Rain, I can't remember it's Heidi K. I cannot remember how to say Kermeyer or something. I can't remember. Anyways, I got Bamboo Pop, which is a bamboo yarn. Bamboo and cotton, I think. There's some right there, but I don't know if I can open this without being crazy. Oopsie. Okay. It is 50%. Oh, did it that time. Maybe. Not so much. I hate it when stuff is all like super out of focus and you're trying to get it to focus and then you're just like staring at it blurry. Anyways, it's 50% cotton, 50% bamboo. And you can get, this is universal yarn. My local yarn store sells it. I got the yarn that I'm going to show you, this sweater. I got it from Love Knitting. So it's actually one of those that's kind of available in 2 spots. And I made this, and this one I like looked up because it's been several years, like it's been 2 years since I made this, but it was about $43.50 for the yarn. I don't wear this at all. I don't know if you can tell on the screen because I can't tell if you can see all of it at the same time. If I sit really far back, I'll look at you through here. Okay, so this, for some reason, like, of course I know everybody says the cotton grows. I don't know what happened with this, but it like it grew out, not down, which is, I'm 5'9", so I'm not gonna love something that shows my love handles, is creeping up above my stretchy pant waistline, because let's face it, who wants to wear jeans? This is just too, it's not attractive. I don't like the way it fits at all. I don't know, maybe I should try it again, but it's way shorter than it was meant to be and way wider. Though, I don't know. I mean, it looks like it halfway fits me. Maybe I'm shorter and wider than I think I am. So I truthfully am not very happy with it. Plus, obviously, I didn't know how to do weave in my ends appropriately because they're coming out. So that was my first ever sweater. And you know what? I'm going to try to wear it tomorrow because maybe I'm just being a little bit too mean to it. Okay, now I'm going to show you the very first garment that I ever made. And it was the ruched tee. And this was back in the very poor days. And so I felt like I was spending a ridiculous amount of money on this yarn. It was about $30. And I was just like flabbergasted. So this was the Karen Simply Soft that I made it out of. Okay, so this is the tee. I hate this. Hate it. I've never actually worn it because you put it on and it's like you've put on your grandma's polyester house dress or something, only it's really fitted on the bottom. And I think because it's acrylic that it makes this shape, because I don't think it's actually supposed to have that big of a curve. That's right on the lines. Acrylic is going to not, you can't block it for real. So all this flipping and stuff is not something that's going to matter if you block it. If you steam block it, you might be able to like kill it. But truthfully, it feels like you are drowning in plastic when you put this on you. I do not like it at all. I did not like knitting it because, as I said before, the Karen Simply Soft is very splitty. I think I've had the same problem when I've crocheted with it, but for knitting, it's constantly coming apart. And it is very plasticky feeling. I chose it because it had a pretty color and it was shiny, and I thought I was like choosing something high class by not getting the I Love This Yarn acrylic. Don't do it. It's not worth it. This is so many hours and I've literally never worn it for more than like 10 minutes because it feels so disgusting on me. You really want to spend, I mean, sweaters take hours, so many hours. They can take you months depending on how fast you knit or how much time you have to knit. You don't want to have something that you're not going to love. And so that kind of is where it is. You know, if you choose something that's economical but really scratchy, you're not going to wear it. So why do that at all? You should enjoy both the knitting and the wearing, because otherwise, what's the point? You know, and truthfully, this is my favorite sweater, the Windswept. It is one of the cheapest sweaters that I've showed you. You can find something that is going to be pleasant to knit with, and pleasant to wear in your yarn stores, online, or indie dyed. I would encourage you, if you are someone who thinks that indie dyed yarn is just way too expensive, to consider how long this garment is going to last, how proud you're going to be every time you wear it, because I can take sticks and strings and make them into this magicalness. This is magic. You are not a muggle, and all the muggles are going to be super impressed with what you've done. So show off your witchcraft. But I'm also going to say that just because you spend a lot of money on yarn doesn't mean it's going to be like the best thing in the world. So the first expensive yarn that I ever bought, and truthfully it's close to the most expensive yarn that I've ever bought actually, it was $35 for a skein, and it was tinsel, which was something I'd never even heard of before. Let me make sure this is facing the right way. Hold on, I'm sorry, my voice is starting to go. Okay. I loved the way it felt. It was so like silky and soft, and I just loved it. So I bought it, and I made the easy as pie shawl. There's the bottom of it. This was my first time doing lace, and it was my first time blocking. And it's the most, I just had my hands up like that, and I'm really super worried that like my armpits were like all wet and sweaty. Sorry. Okay, so I did this, and I don't like it. So there's only one skein in this. So yeah, it was only $35, but it is the most expensive yarn. My husband did get me some blue heron for Christmas the year before last, and so that is the most expensive yarn I have, but this is the most expensive I've ever bought. But part of it is user error. I'm absolutely positive. It was my first time doing lace, and I found the pattern very confusing. Side note, it was a free pattern, because back then I didn't understand why you would pay for patterns. There's a reason. Lots of reasons. And the same thing goes for indie designers as for the indie yarns. You should be paying people for their work, and you get back what you put into it. Not all of them, truthfully, not all free patterns are crappy. I'm not saying that at all. A lot of people will put out some of their patterns free for a certain time, or they will put out a couple free patterns in addition to all of their paid patterns. But all the free patterns are not necessarily created equal, and this was not one that I could understand. I probably would have been much better served having paid for a pattern that had pattern support and that was well edited and clear, because this was none of those. And I was a new lace knitter, and also I don't know how to block, and I didn't have blocking wires, so I just was using pins. And so as you can see, it's a ridiculously elongated triangle. I don't even, this actually, the last time I wore it recently, and was like, you know what, I'm gonna try this out, see what I think about it now. And what I've decided to do is I'm going to try to reblock this and use blocking wires to a more regular shape. There's tons of mistakes. Like, I can't even tell what the pattern was supposed to be down here. Obviously the ends are starting to, I mean, there's an edging on here, but even now, I'm like, I don't even understand what's going on here. You know, like, this right here, I guarantee that's not what that's supposed to look like. And where's the end? The end has, like, this huge, like, piece of yarn. I don't even know where this come from. Anyways, I'm going to reblock it and see if reblocking it will kind of make it better. I know that there were mistakes in the edgings. It is the first, I think it's the first shawl I ever made. But obviously, it's the most expensive yarn I ever bought. But I don't like it because it's hideous. So I'm going to reblock it and see if I like it that way, if that fixes it. Otherwise, I'm going to rip it out and do something different with it that I will like, because this yarn is lovely. I love the colors, and truthfully, I've gone from being like a brown girl to being a gray neutral girl, but I still love this, and it even has gold in it, and I'm not a yellow person. But I think that I should be using this for something. So just because you spend a lot of money on yarn doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to love what it is, but carefully choosing your yarn and carefully choosing your patterns, I think, goes a really long way. And I think that you should also keep in mind that you're worth it. You are worth your hobby being important, even if it means you're saving, setting something aside to be able to buy something fancier. And like I said, you know, a sweater doesn't have to cost $100. I'm going to adore my sweaters that do. They are going to totally be worth it. I am going to love every single time I wear one of them. But you can also make a sweater with nicer yarn than acrylic, or something that you would find in a big box store, and still super love it without breaking the bank. I hope all that makes sense. And I hope nobody's mad at me, because I love a lot of yarns. But I'm really hoping the yarn snobs don't attack me. And also, I was also going to, sorry, I'm so hot. I was also going to share, because I shared like cotton or plant fiber yarns from the big box stores and the like online places, and from the yarn shops. And truthfully, I don't see as many indie dyers having like cotton yarns, but the two that I like know of and am familiar with are Vanessa at My Creative Garage. She's in Australia, and she has some really nice like speckles and really pretty colors. I know that she started doing some cotton yarns recently. I don't know if she did them before, but I know that she just put a bunch out. Because I know that some people do have like wool sensitivities, and there's not, most indie dyers are pretty much doing wool. And so I wanted to kind of add this in there if you're looking for something outside of the commercial yarns at a yarn store for non-wool stuff. And then the other one I could not remember for the life of me, and had to ask the Cozy Up with the Stitchin' Sisters, and they came to my rescue because I could not remember what the name of the place was that they always talk about, because I get it confused with the other one whose name is similar. But Penny at Creek Garden Crafts on Etsy also carries cotton yarn, and Pima Cotton. So that's like a place that you can get cotton yarns, like if you are allergic to wool or don't want stuff like either allergic to it or don't want it on your skin or whatever. Those were a couple that I wanted to highlight, since I don't have any indie dyed plant fiber type yarns to share with you today. So there are those. And also, since this is kind of geared towards like newer knitters right now, it won't always be, but I just kind of like had this idea for people that I actually knew. I was going to share again, some podcasts. So on YouTube, here are some of my favorites. There are tons of them. If you just start looking for knitting podcasts on there, I truthfully have not looked to see if there are crochet ones, but I'm sure that there are. Occasionally there will be some crocheting on mine, when I'm doing a project that has crochet in it. I am bistitchual, but the other podcasts that I think that all newer knitters that haven't really gotten into the podcast scene should try out. I have a couple of lists. I just discovered podcasts like in March, and those were audio, and then I don't think I looked for them on YouTube until I can't remember if the baby was born yet. She was born at the end of May. She might not have been, but it was late in the spring when I discovered like the YouTube podcasts. And I've not had knitting friends really. And so getting connected in that way is a way that even if you don't have like a knitting group that you can come to, even if your best friend doesn't, or like your three sisters don't knit with you, you can still have a community, and it's an amazing community. You get to feeling like you know these people. But anyways, without me rambling anymore, my recommendations that you try out immediately for YouTube podcasts, video podcasts, are Grocery Girls, Cozy Up with Stitchin' Sisters, The Knitting Expat, Suburban Stitcher, Spicy Homemaker, Hey Sister, and The Knit Girls with 3 L's can be found either on YouTube or audio. And then for those, I a lot of times will watch the video ones while I'm knitting, or when I'm feeding the baby, something like that. But obviously you can't sit in front of your computer all the time. So I'm getting really shiny. Woo. Anytime that I'm outside working or outside or cleaning, that doesn't happen a lot. In the van, when we're going places, basically anytime that I'm not able to just sit in front of the computer, I listen to a lot of audio podcasts. And I would say that my favorites, and my husband's, he complains sometimes when I listen to podcasts without him, and they are all knitting podcasts. I have not been able to get into anything that's not knitting. They inspire me so much, and I feel fueled to just create when I listen to podcasts or watch them. And yeah, but anyways, my husband, he's a freak. Anyways, so for audio podcasts, start with Prairie Girls. Go back and listen to all of them. I did. It was fantastic. The Knitmore Girls, Imagine Landscapes, She Can Make, Unraveling with Greg and Joey, Down Cellar Studios, and Very Pink. Very Pink is different than the other ones. Truthfully, most of the audio ones kind of follow the same format that a lot of the YouTube ones do. Very Pink does kind of a question and answer thing, and occasionally they will have interviews with experts that are knitting related. I find that I don't necessarily learn a lot of stuff from that because I have done a lot. Truthfully, if I run across a technique that I don't know, I will go to her, Very Pink's YouTube channel, and learn how to do it from her. If there's a stitch or a technique, so that's something you should definitely do. But the questions, a lot of times I feel like I kind of know the answer a little bit. But for someone who's a newer knitter, there's so much information that comes from those questions and answers, and you can go on her website and actually ask questions of your own if you have them. So that's something I think new knitters definitely need to be listening to. These people, I feel like I know all of them and that they are my friends, even though they have no clue who I am. You learn so much and you're inspired by them, and I think that that just really makes a connection that sometimes you can't find locally. If you do have some kind of connection that you can make locally, do it, because it's great. Women need people who will build them up and let their creative juices flow. That is, well, and guys too. I'm not saying that guys can't knit or crochet. Sorry about that. But yeah, hook up, find somebody that inspires you, that encourages you, that builds you up, because everybody needs that in their life. Okay, I think that is all the rambling that I have laid out around me in my podcast like dungeon here. I didn't save anything for next week, so I guess I will have to shave my legs. Look forward to that. I haven't really been able to have like the pressure with my hand, and plus it was in the grocery sack for like 2 weeks. So they're very winterized. So yeah, I'm gonna have to remember to do that before I podcast next week. I'm little bit of Manse life. Basically, we had Thanksgiving. We decorated. Hanging of the Greens was this week at church. That's pretty, some shopping. That's really all that's happened around here this week, other than what I've told you about my hand and the knitting that I've done. So that's pretty much all I have for Manse life as well. Sorry. Okay, so until next week, keep knitting, have fun, find some friends, whether they are online or in your iPod, or face-to-face. Friends are always good, and there are so many lovely, lovely knitters. There's a great community. Find people on Instagram. Come over to the Ravelry group and join that, chat along, see if there's any questions you have. Don't burn me in effigy if I've offended anyone with my opinions about yarn and needles and hooks. And I think that's it. Yeah. Have a good week. Bye.